Hello, everyone, and good morning. I'd like to welcome you to our Start with Safety webinar. My name is Lisa Christofferson, and I'm the membership manager here at the Utah Safety Council. Each month, we try to start with safety. We keep safety at the forefront, try to start everything that we do with safety. And so each month, we try to start with safety by having a webinar so we can keep that safety conversation going. And so today we have a guest. Our guest is with us today, and we are going to do a little bit of chit-chatting about safety. Again, with the Utah Safety Council, I've got my team here. I've got Cameron Clark, who's our occupational training safety manager, and Megan Spackman, who is our mining and refinery program manager. They're here with me to help me out today. And we have our guest, and so I'm just going to quickly introduce him so that we don't take too much of the time that he's allotted for us. But we have Congressman Ben McAdams here with us today. And Congressman Ben McAdams is a 7th generation Utahn, and he was raised in a family of 8. That is where he learned hard work, honesty, and duty to his community. He was the twice elected mayor of the Salt Lake County and former Utah State Senator. He graduated from the University of Utah and Columbia Law School, and he practiced law in New York and Utah, assisting businesses with federal securities regulation compliance. In the Utah State Senate, McAdams worked to protect victims of financial fraud and offered legislation to combat consumer fraud. Congressman McAdams has been selected to serve on the House Financial Services Committee and the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. He and his wife, fellow Columbia Law graduate Julie, and their 4 kids live in Salt Lake, where they enjoy hiking, soccer, baseball, and all the cultural activities that we all enjoy here in Utah. McAdams is fluent in Portuguese and conversant in Spanish. He has also been a great friend and support to several members of the Christofferson family, so I really appreciate that, and I appreciate him taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk to us and possibly answer some questions. So I heard you already once on the radio this morning, but Congressman, what's going on? What's going on in Washington, and can you talk to us a little bit about safety?
Absolutely. Good morning, Lisa. Great to see you, and thank you for inviting me to join you today. As we all are continuing to cope with the effects of COVID-19, safety is even more top of mind for people. So thank you for all that you do at the Utah Safety Council to help all of us to stay safe and healthy in a variety of ways throughout our life. Something that I think we can all agree on is that safety is nonpartisan. We are in a time right now in this country where it seems like we are making everything partisan, but keeping us safe in the workplace and at home is something that just shouldn't be and isn't partisan. So all of us, regardless of political affiliation, whether we're Republicans or Democrats, we have to come together to tackle some of these issues. And I think the Utah Safety Council's driving safety courses are a perfect example. So I have 2 young teenagers, twins, who will be getting their learner's permits here soon. In fact, their birthday's later this week, so very soon we'll have some learner permits here in our home. And I can personally attest to the importance of teaching best safety practices to ensure the health of my family and those of us who are on the road with them. So an area that I've spent a lot of attention on is internet safety. So with COVID-19, our kids are online more than ever. And I know I'm not alone in seeing a big increase in kids' screen time. My kids recently took over my makeshift home office to make room for their online school. So we see how this is going in my own home as well. And we all agree that the internet is a valuable tool for staying connected with friends and family and making remote learning possible. But it can also be a dangerous place for unsuspecting children who are innocent targets for online predators. My kids are good kids, and my wife and I trust them, but we also worry about their safety. And frankly, this has been a time when criminals see a target-rich environment. Local news reports all too frequently tell us that the extent and sophistication of predator activity in Utah families are not immune to these crimes. So even before the coronavirus public health crisis, I made child safety a priority of mine in Congress, and I've introduced a measure calling on the tech industry and app developers to create an independent app ratings board, similar to what the movie and video game industries have done. and also to develop user-friendly parental controls. I've supported the Department of Justice resources for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and also offered an amendment to boost federal funding for children's justice centers to provide comprehensive services and to support child abuse victims. Another safety area that I've spent time working on is support for our nation's veterans. America's servicemen and women sign up to train, fight if necessary, and to be on the front lines ready to protect us from threats. And far too often, when their service is over, they return home only to struggle with mental health issues. And tragically, many of our veterans die by suicide. This is unacceptable, and it can be prevented. Just last week, I met with Utah veteran Chris Gaynor, who has survived a suicide attempt. And Chris said, shockingly, that he has lost more friends and service members to suicide than in his 2 deployments to Iraq combined. Many of you know, because you work in data and spreadsheets to make informed decisions, that developing safety programs based on the evidence is the most effective way for us to do things. We also know that hearing the stories of those personally affected, like how Chris bravely shares his deeply personal story, is what compels us to come up with solutions in the first place. So my bill aimed at reducing veteran suicide, it passed Congress and is now awaiting the president's signature. And while we know this is greatly needed because the veteran suicide rate is 1.5 times higher than that of non-veterans. We also know it matters because of veterans like Chris, who gave so much to our nation and now are telling their story about the risks that they continue to face. We owe it to Chris, and we owe it to his fellow service members to keep them safe when they return back home. So obviously today, keeping safety in the face of, keeping safe and all of us safe in the face of COVID-19 is something that we are all thinking about. And I'll just take a moment to reiterate my best wishes for the speedy recovery of the President, the First Lady, and our own Senator Mike Lee, who was recently diagnosed with COVID. And I know all too well how scary this virus can be. As many of you may remember, I was diagnosed with COVID back in March when it was first coming out and first really hitting here. And before a lot of the protocols were advised, I had some meetings in my office and probably got it from some people I was meeting with. And later that week, the recommendations came down to wear a mask and that, but it seemed like I had already been exposed. But I'm really grateful to the nurses and the doctors who treated me while I was in the hospital. I spent 8 days in the hospital. My case started off pretty mild. And then a few days into it, about 3 days into it, it got worse. And I was at home, quarantining at home. And about a week into it, it moved into my lungs. I had difficulty breathing. My oxygen levels were in the 80s and low. And so I was checked into the emergency room, was in the ICU for a few days and spent a total of 8 days in the hospital. And now I'm better, I'm doing much better now, but I'm so grateful to the doctors and nurses who treated me while I was in the hospital and put their lives and took risks to treat me as I was laying in a hospital bed. And they do that not only for me, but for so many others, that they're taking risks. And, I want to do everything we can to minimize the risk and slow the spread of this virus. The care they provide for us and for all of us deserves appreciation, whether or not the virus has touched you personally. And I have that same gratitude for the Utah Safety Council, the work you do to prevent dangerous and even deadly accidents. Your proactive approach has helped countless individuals from ending up in dangerous situations. So let me say thank you for all you do, for inviting me to be with you today. And I look forward to, we still have some time, so look forward to a conversation about how I can support you or things that you think I should be aware of. Again, thank you for your important work, and it's been an honor and pleasure to work with you in various capacities with the Utah Safety Council, both as a member of Congress and in my previous role as mayor of Salt Lake County. So it's great to be with you all. I'll turn it back to you, Lisa. I think you're still muted though. Are you? We're not hearing you. Lisa, I'm not hearing you. I don't know if others are. I'm seeing you're talking, but I'm not hearing you. Oh, we got a blip for a second. There we go. We got you.
Hear that now? Can you hear?
We can hear you now.
Okay. There's something wrong with my mic there. So, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So, we are going to allow a couple of questions. I have a question or two. And if anybody else wants to add anything or possibly ask if we have time, you're welcome to put that in the chat. So the first question I kind of have is, it's just about, you know, the Utah Safety Council, we work with a lot of businesses. Businesses are our members. And, you know, we talk a lot about voting this November, and we've got an election apparently happening. And we want to know, you know, as we vote in our personal lives, but as businesses and in our work roles, how can we help impact things for the better? How can we help keep things safe and make a difference in that way? Is there anything that you could recommend for us in that regard?
Yeah, well, I certainly can, and thank you. And there is an election around the corner. I want to be careful here, since I think I'm on this call as a member of Congress, so I'm not going to talk about my own personal election. We'll leave that up to a different forum and a different time. I try to separate candidate Ben from Congressman Ben, and I'm here today as a congressman, but I will tell you what I'm doing as a congressman, and that is to support our businesses to have what it takes for you to be safe. And you know, we have a delicate balance in the midst of this pandemic, and that balance is to both protect the safety of your employees and yourself, but also to protect the customers and make sure that the people coming into your various establishments are safe as well, and that each and every one of us is doing our part to slow the spread of this virus. And so you've seen recommendations coming from our governor, from public health departments across various county health departments about guidance that you should follow. And you know, different places in this country are different and differently situated, and we're seeing a bit of an uptick in Salt Lake County and Utah County and in Utah. So I would first of all advise you all to follow closely those public health guidelines that are coming from our governor, to make sure that we are following those practices, things like wearing a mask, using hand sanitizer, practicing good social distancing, make sure that people are distanced within your establishment to minimize the risk of transmission. We can't ever take that to zero, but we can do everything within our power to minimize it. And you know, I think we've seen recommendations from shutdowns to social distancing to different things. And really, regardless of what the government says, the other people we need to keep happy are the consumers, the people in the public. If they don't feel safe, then regardless of what the government says, we are not going to see people coming out and supporting our businesses. And so we've got to maintain that delicate balance of moving the economy forward. That is important to the health and safety and livelihood of so many Utahns, that they can work and they can put food on their table and support their families. But also recognizing that we are in a climate where this virus is still among us and still spreading. And I think what I'm trying to do at the congressional level is we've supported things like the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, to make sure that you have resources to keep employees on the payroll, and hopefully understanding that you're going to have expenses that come with that, from providing PPE, masks and hand sanitizer to employees and to customers, and trying to make sure that you have some resources to do that. So many of you, I hope, benefited from the PPP the first time around. We are in negotiations right now to try and move forward an additional round of that support. I'm pushing for another round of PPP to support our small businesses who probably counted on that lifeline the first time it came through, but there's probably a need for some of you may be doing okay, and we figured out how to open back up and have customers come back into your establishment. Some of you may not be fully reopened, or customers may not be back 100%. And you're still being impacted. And so for businesses that are still struggling to keep employees on the payroll, I'm hoping to see another round of PPP come forward. Those negotiations thus far have not resulted in an agreement, but, and I'm not at the negotiating table. That's between the White House and House leadership and Senate leadership, but I'm encouraging people to stay at the negotiating table until we have a deal that's agreed upon by all the parties. And we can get you those resources to continue to keep your establishment safe, to do your part to minimize the spread of this virus, and also to continue to move forward economically. And, you know, I would say, I know, and it seems like in my personal life with my family, and I think this is true for so many of us, that we've now been in this pandemic for over 6 months. And I think we have a tendency to maybe become numb to it. And while I know that our family is still practicing all of the precautions that they tell us to practice, sometimes it's not at the forefront of our thought. We've maybe gotten accustomed to it. So in the last week, COVID has gotten a little bit more attention with the president's unfortunate diagnosis and his hospitalization. And I'm, you know, as I say that, you know, and wish this president and first lady a speedy recovery and hope that they get through this. Let this also be a wake-up call to all of us that the virus is still with us. It's still something we should take seriously. We know more about it now. We know some things we can do to navigate our lives and to stay safe and to minimize our own individual risk and the risk that we might spread it to others. Let this be a reminder to us that it's still important to follow that. Until we have a vaccine, it's still important to take safety precautions to protect ourselves, to protect our loved ones, and to do our part to slow the spread of the virus.
Great, thank you. We appreciate that. It's a great answer and some great recommendations. I do have one more question if you're okay and have a little bit more time.
Sure.
Something that we kind of wanted to talk about or ask about was, we know that when you were first in political office, and I'm wearing my vintage Ben mayor shirt today,
oh,
but
nice.
we know that homelessness was a big part of what you were passionate about. And I think a lot of us were really moved by that and felt like that was really important. And so now we feel like, you know, there's a lot of things going on a national level. Everybody's kind of focusing on COVID, and there's a lot of stuff still happening, you know, with the homeless, especially here in our area. So I know that's not necessarily your realm anymore, but I wanted to kind of hear you talk a little bit about where we're at and maybe what are some recommendations that you have for us, or how can we help that? We see this happening in our community. We see, you know, increased crime. You know, we know our resources are going to help with COVID and stuff, but it's still a problem, and we're concerned. So maybe if you could speak to that a little bit, or help us kind of break that down and give us some ideas of what we could do, that would be awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And that is an issue that I've worked hard on, especially when I was mayor, but even now as a member of Congress. I sit in a different chair. I have a different role, but it's an issue that is still important to me, and I continue to work on that. I'm on the House Financial Services Committee, which actually has jurisdiction over housing and homelessness as well. And so I'm able to continue working to try and address that issue. I'll tell you what we did when I was mayor to address homelessness was to look at the whole system and what it's going to take to not only to minimize the suffering that we see of people who are on the streets and are homeless, but actually to try to help people to get back on their feet and not just give them a place to sleep tonight or a meal to eat for lunch today, but it's what can we do in the short term for sure to address the emergency situation that so many people find them in, but looking to the long term and what's it going to take to help them to get to the point that they're capable of helping themselves and getting back on their feet so they don't need that short-term assistance. And what we looked at is so many of the individuals, not all, but so many of the individuals come to homelessness because of an underlying condition. And so we tried to get upstream, trying to diagnose what was underneath the crisis of homelessness. And, you know, it's things like domestic violence. Somebody has fled from home, from a violent situation at home. It's certainly a loss of a job. Almost 60% of individuals who find themselves homeless, there's a co-occurring addiction or mental health and usually both mental health and addiction, and looking to help those individuals. And what we found was needed there is to simply expand access to drug treatment. And so here in Utah, we expanded Medicaid to provide healthcare options to low-income individuals, many of them homeless, and offered them, an opportunity to turn their life around by getting into a treatment program and learning to manage their addiction and to enter recovery and get back on their feet. And as we did that, we saw so many people take that option, and we're doing so much better today. In fact, I'll just, as an aside, there was actually a documentary that was made about addiction and homelessness, and it highlighted, four or five different stories around the country, but one of them was right here in Utah, and it included some of the work that we've done to address homelessness here. And documentary will be aired. Unfortunate timing for a documentary that came out right as COVID, so it's been hard to get into some of the film festivals and that, but they are doing a screening this Saturday night at a drive-in theater. So we'll be posting that. We'll post that on our Facebook page here in a little bit, so you can see that. But if you want to learn about addressing homelessness, but as part of my work then to really understand what the challenges were underlying homelessness and how we could improve our system and improve chances for people who are experiencing homelessness. I spent a couple of years analyzing the system, working with homeless services providers, working with people who were homeless to understand what was working and what wasn't working. And when it came down to it, I felt that there were still some elements that were missing in my understanding of before I could have sufficient knowledge to make recommendations of how to proceed. And so I remember it was actually, it was in the spring of 2017. So it's been about 3 years now. I was tasked with making a pretty important decision about the future and fate of our homeless services here in Utah, and didn't feel that I had complete information. So spent 3 days and 2 nights in March of 2017 on the streets with the homeless and experiencing homeless services firsthand. I slept on the street one night. I ate my meals at the soup kitchen and other homeless providers. And the second night slept in the shelter, and really was able to see firsthand some of the challenges that individuals who are homeless are facing. Little things from, we want them to get a job and we want them to get back on their feet, but it wasn't easy to find a place to store your stuff. And you had to wait in line for sometimes 5 or 6 hours to get into the shelter. And if you it's hard to be going to a job interview when you have to take all your life's possessions with you everywhere you go, and you have to wait in line for 6 hours a day to get a bed. We made it really hard for people to get back on their feet. And so there were some little changes that we needed to make it easier for people to find a job, to keep appointments, whether it was a job interview or a drug treatment meeting with a counselor for drug treatment. And so we've been able to make many of those changes. There's still work to do, as you see. There's still homeless people in our community. There probably will be forever. But what we want to do is make sure, shorten the time that somebody finds themselves homeless, increase opportunities and open doors for them to get help, to get back on their feet, and to live a safer, more stable, more fulfilling life by getting them the help that they need, the short-term help that they can have long-term benefits. And I've seen firsthand so many people who have benefited from treatment and able to move on to build successful lives and to become contributing members of society and give back and in so many ways. And I want to relate it back to, I was talking earlier about my work on suicide prevention. I think we are at a point where it is important, mental health is something that we have not talked about as a society. I remember growing up and it was something that you hid, you didn't talk about. It was shameful if somebody needed a mental health intervention, whether it's someone contemplating suicide or someone with an addiction. It's just not something we've talked about. I hope, it seems like we are, and I hope that we continue to move in the direction of recognizing that all of us have mental health, just like all of us have physical health. Sometimes we are well, sometimes physically we can be not so well, and sometimes physically we can be really, really sick with chronic conditions. And it's not something that we are ashamed to talk about. I don't hide if I have a cold. I don't hide my COVID diagnosis. If somebody has cancer or diabetes, it's not something that we feel compelled that we have to hide from others. And I hope we can get that to that point when we discuss our mental health too. Sometimes we are mentally well, and sometimes we have issues. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that all of us from time to time are going to be in better or worse conditions and may need some support. And so as people, you know, like Chris, who I was talking about, who contemplated suicide, and I think he's such a hero now for having the courage to share his story. It helps people like me understand what we can do, where our challenges exist, and what we can do to help him better. But it also just helps to destigmatize. The best thing we can do to prevent suicide is to destigmatize it so that people are comfortable talking to a loved one or a friend or a counselor when those thoughts are in their mind, and to get help. And the same for somebody who's suffering from an addiction. The opposite of addiction, they say, is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And the more we can destigmatize some of these issues surrounding mental health, the more we can help people form those connections that are going to help them to overcome an addiction, to overcome the risk of dying by suicide, and to get the help that they need. And so, you know, that's maybe the biggest takeaway if I were to distill it down to just one thing of both my work on homelessness and my work on suicide reduction is let's all do our part to destigmatize it, develop a comfort level talking about it so that people feel comfortable seeking help when they need it.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate that answer. Before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to share with us or talk about?
Well, I think the mission of the Utah Safety Council is so broad, and I appreciate the work that you do. I look forward to continuing to engage, whether it's simple things like workplace safety, and we talked about just PPE and responsible practices in the workplace, helping to protect our employees and our customers, to safety of, you know, as it relates to mental and behavioral health. And please continue to engage with me. Child safety, I think, is another one that we've worked together on. And I referenced in my introductory remarks, both keeping our kids safe online, but it's also, you know, vehicle safety. And just please continue to reach out to me and my office. We look forward to engaging with you. And it's a pleasure working with you. I remind people, so my title as a member of Congress is representative. I'm Representative Ben McAdams. But that's also my job description, is to represent. So please do not hesitate to reach out if I can be helpful, or if my office can be helpful with anything big or small. That's what we're here for. I look forward to working with you.
Great. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. I know you're very busy, but we appreciate that, and good luck in the upcoming election. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Lisa. Great to see you.
Too. For the rest of us, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the Utah Safety Council benefits and some of the stuff that's coming up, and just some of the stuff that we want everybody to remember and to be aware of, and to know what's going on. So I'm going to start, and Cameron will finish up, but we are actually going to throw out a couple of polls while we do this part of the presentation as well. So feel free to answer those polls and respond, and that will help us to kind of know what benefits you're using and what we can do to help you get the most out of your membership. So go ahead and feel free to respond to those when those pop up. So I do see on my screen the first one popped up, but one of our favorite benefits that we like to offer to our members is an OSHA 10 class. And I mean, that's just kind of huge. It's kind of intro to OSHA, and it's a real great starting point to figure out what you kind of need as a safety as a safety manager or a safety designee with what you do. So that is the first poll that we have, but we do have a couple of OSHA 10s coming up here soon. We have general industry, and we also have construction. So we've got those dates coming up, and I will send out an email, a follow-up with all this information so that you can kind of focus on what we're talking about, but I will send that with links to be able to sign up for these classes. So Cameron will talk a little bit more about the occupational stuff, but that is what's coming up for OSHA or OSHA 10. We have our next Start with Safety. Like we mentioned before, we like to start each month safely and start each month with a conversation about safety. So November, we're going to talk about taking safety home and some of those resources that we have and some of the ways that we can take what we learn in the workplace home. So that will be in November, so don't forget that one. And then December, it will be slips, trips, and falls. So we've got those coming up, and both of those will kind of have that conversation, and then afterwards we talk a little bit about resources and benefits, a little bit kind of different every time, just what's relevant. So don't forget to make sure you signed up for those. The last free member benefit course I wanted to talk about on this list was our first aid, CPR, and AED course. I mean, that's this is kind of the safety basics, and so please make sure you as a safety council member or someone from your organization is participating every year. Things do change, and it's always good to keep safety in the front and at the forefront. So make sure you get signed up for that class if you haven't done that. Maybe someone else from your organization, it's their turn. So those are those classes that I wanted to mention. Something else I wanted to mention is we are announcing our dates and announcing our conference this week. We watch for some information. We'll be putting out some emails that will be included in safety notes that should be going out here shortly, but our conference is coming up, and it's going to be March 2nd and 3rd. It's going to be a virtual event. So it will be accessible to a lot of people, maybe people who weren't able to go before. It's going to be just an accessible, great way to do it. We're working with a company that's going to help us make it a very engaging event and make it still as interactive and as beneficial for our attendees and for the people participating in our expo. So it's going to be awesome. Watch for that. We're going to be putting out some more information about that later this week. So that is coming up. The other two, if you want to back up my slide for me, Megan, we back it up one, thank you. The other couple things that I have on here that I'm really excited to talk about is some updates from our Women in Safety program. So we are excited to have Dr. Laurie Todd Smith. She's going to call in and do a webinar with us and with the Women in Safety and whoever actually wants to participate. But she's the director of the United States Department of Labor, the Women's Bureau. So this kind of the OG, the original women's group from the Department of Labor. It's been around for a really long time, but when women entered the workplace, this was an organization that helped facilitate that and helped work towards equality and different initiatives to help women. And so this organization is really interesting, and they've done a lot this year. It's 100 years since they've been around, so we're excited to have their director join us from Washington, D.C. She's going to call in, and we're going to talk about our Women in Safety organization and what's coming up with that. And then she's going to just kind of talk to us about what they do at the Department of Labor and entertain some questions. And it's just going to be a really good, open, good conversation. And we're going to talk about, things that we can do as women in safety. So please join us for that. Watch for that. That's going to be on the 16th of October. It's a Friday, and it will be at 9 in the morning. Another thing I wanted to mention as far as Women in Safety goes is we do have our Wish Award event that we're planning for December 10th. Now, we've only announced the day. We haven't announced the time or how to sign up or participate in that one just yet. But we're really excited about that. We had some amazing people that were nominated for the Women in Safety and Health Award, the Wish Award, and It's going to be a crazy, difficult decision, but the event that we're planning to honor this person and to kind of celebrate women in safety is going to be kind of different than other types of events that you may have attended. And we're going to have an amazing speaker. It's going to be exciting. So please watch for that. That will be in December, and it will be definitely something different and something fun and also educational, hopefully, and inspiring. So please make sure you join us for that. So those are the updates that I wanted to share as far as what's coming down the pike. I did want to mention, if you want to go to the next one quickly, Megan. A couple of other things before I let Cameron take over. But this past month, I would say end of August and September, the things that people probably use most as far as member benefits go, I wanted to kind of mention those. So we had a pretty good month as far as streaming. I did finally get an answer and some information, but we have over 2,000 videos is what they're telling us. So we've got quite a few streaming resources. If you've never logged into that, I'll make sure to send you a link with a follow-up email, but please check that out. Every video comes with at least a quiz and a sign-up sheet. If not, most of them have like learner guides, user guides, facilitator guides, outlines. Some of them come with even, PowerPoints and worksheets and activities. So that is definitely something to look into, and I'll make sure I include a link there. If you haven't seen it, just log in and check it out. You'll find something that will help you and that you can use for your organization. I promise there's so much stuff in there. Let's see, the next one that I wanted to mention this month was the consulting. So our sustaining members each year, if you are a sustaining member, you get this benefit, but you get a walkthrough with a safety professional from the Utah Safety Council, one of our instructors or somebody, and they will come and walk through your place of business, and they can help give you some recommendations. Now, this isn't like an audit or an inspection. It's just basically a consultation. And I know for me, and working in a kind of a regulatory area, it's always so good and helpful to have just some outside eyes, extra, controls process, just to check. And it's just something that we do. And I don't think a lot of people remember that that's part of something that we provide for our members. So please, if you've not done that, that is such a helpful resource, and it's part of what's included for our sustaining members. If you're not a sustaining member, that's okay. Please reach out to us anyway. We do still do consulting, and we do provide, answers to questions or recommendations as well. So we can get that for you at consulting at a very discounted cost, or even just answering questions is always free. So please, even if that's not necessarily the level of membership that you're at, don't forget that we do that, and we're happy to help answer questions and arrange that for you, even if that's just something you might want to consider for now. Another thing that we do is kind of an AED walkthrough. If you do or do not have AEDs, we've been talking quite a bit about that over the past little while, but if you've never had somebody come walk through your facility and give some recommendations or help with that, I mean, we sell AEDs at a discount. We also provide the training and a lot of the documentation. We walk you through all of that. It is a medical device, so it's a little bit fun when it comes to compliance, but we don't want you to have to worry about any of that. So even if you're just considering it, or maybe you already have some, just to have somebody walk through, just make sure your AEDs are placed properly and you're doing everything that you can as far as training and making sure that people are aware of those resources. That's something also that we can do and help with, that's been very valuable for some. The next one that I have on here is the resources and facts. On our website, we have a lot of safety information sheets, and I don't think a lot of people realize that they're there, but I did have an EHS manager tell me that every year they kind of go through and print some out and put them in people's paycheck stubs, you know, just different tips or ideas or just different things like that. People will print them out, hang them up on the bulletin board, include them in a newsletter, those types of things. So if you ever are looking for toolbox topics or something to include in a newsletter or with paycheck stubs, I will send a link to that as well. But there are a lot of facts just on our website and a lot of helpful hints and just different things to be aware of. So I will send a link to that as well, and you can check it out. The last thing I was going to mention before I turned the camera over to Cameron was our safe driving resources. There's a couple of initiatives this month regarding safe driving, and so we're going to be sharing some stuff on social media for that. But we do have a resource on our website that you can click on, and there's tons of traffic information. There's videos, there's PowerPoints, toolbox talks, little posters, different things. And then at the bottom of that section, there's some other links to other websites and organizations that have even more resources. So I'll include a link to that as well. But you'll start to see October, there are quite a few initiatives for safe driving. So it might be a good time to hop on board one of those initiatives and get some resources to support that and make that a focus for this upcoming month. So that is all I had as on my list to cover today. I'm going to let Cameron kind of take over, but I do want to just remind everyone, we do have your sign up information. So I will follow up with an email, including some of these links. We'll include kind of a link to Ben McAdams' website and those types of things. But as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Email us is a great way to do it. safety@utahsafetycouncil.org is a great way. You can track us down on our website or any of our social media channels, but just feel free to reach out with any of your questions or to keep the conversation going when it comes to safety. And I will go ahead and turn this camera over to Cameron. Thank you.
All right, well, hello. For those who don't know me, my name is Cameron Clark. I'm the Occupational Safety Training Program Manager. And I just kind of want to go over what we've got upcoming over the next couple of months here. And then I did want to hit on, just while I was watching some of these polls, I did want to kind of hit on the point of using your member benefits. So with member benefit, one thing I thought would be helpful to clarify, I saw there was almost 90% of people that are on saying, no, we haven't used that benefit. So I wanted to clarify that you don't have to use that benefit yourself if you're the one on the account. That benefit's used for you or anyone in your organization. So we can track that on our end if you want to send someone. The nice thing is with these OSHA 10s is if you're sending someone to one of those courses, it is a really great builder course, as Lisa kind of introduced. But the other thing that we have here is we offer the OSHA compliance certificate. And with that one, the OSHA 10 hour is really the start of that. So if you have a supervisor, you have someone in a leadership role that you want to be able to integrate even more into the safety role, it's really helpful to put them through an OSHA 10 and then start building on those foundation classes. With the certificate of OSHA compliance, each topic, what you have is you have your OSHA 10 up top, and then you have each topic below, and those topics focus on specific standards. So it's not just it's like a welding, cut, and brazing, for example. It's not going to be teaching your individuals how to weld, cut, and braze, but it's going to be teaching them how to navigate those standards and those regulations with OSHA, with inspections, things like that. So it's a really valuable tool that really kind of kicks off potential for an even better working program. As far as courses coming up, Megan, do you mind turning the screen for me? Okay, so here's just a list of courses we have coming up. These are in occupational. One other thing we do have for first aid, CPR, AD, that was listed as one of those that you get a free member benefit. That one, we do have one on October 13th. We have one November 18th and December 9th. And then there's also an instructor course on November 11th through 13th. So something to keep in mind, if you have someone that you would like to continue that training and not have to bring an instructor out every time, that's something to consider bringing them in. With all these courses that you see listed here, some of them they're going to have the ASC after. That's our Advanced Safety Certificate. With that one, Safety Training Methods, that's going on this next week. These are 4-day courses that really help someone that wants to take their safety knowledge to the next level and how to really integrate that within their program and within their company. With that, the other ones that you'll see here are part of our OSHA compliance series. So those ones are those good building classes where you can build that certificate in OSHA compliance. We did add a 10-hour general industry in December, the 2nd and 3rd. This class is just, I added this class on. We had a class this last week that had really high participation. We had some people that weren't able to get into that, weren't able to use their member benefit, and would like to get that done before the end of the year. So we added that one on for you. We also have that OSHA 10 construction safety. So if you want to take more of that focus depending on what your organization does, if you have questions about any of this stuff too, feel free to reach out to me anytime because I can answer any of those questions for you. As far as one other thing I did want to mention too that Lisa was talking about was our consultations. So with the member benefit consultation, that can be very, generic. They come through, make sure you're working on what you got the right focus, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the nice thing is a lot of our consultations will go into specific needs. So if you have a particular part of your program that you just do not feel that you're maybe right on the right path, or you would like just some extra input, the nice thing is I can kind of help line you up with who would be the best professional with the experience to be able to make the right suggestions for you. And with those live consultations that we do, with those, what they'll do is they'll come through, talk through, and then after, they'll actually give you a write-up and make suggestions, give you a summary of what they did and what they would suggest you do. So it's a really useful tool for companies that just want to make sure that they're right on the right path and want to be able to use the resources that they have here with their member, with their benefits, and just being a part of the Utah Safety Council. So that pretty much covers it for me for upcoming courses. Do you want to conclude with anything, Lisa? Okay, well, I'll just say thank you for everyone. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate Ben McAdams for talking with us today, and please tune in next time for our home community. All right, thank you.